Welcome to the Butt Fixer Podcast, brought to you by Shane Gentry and John Van Olden. Sit back, listen up, and listen good. You're going to hear it all right because we've already done it all wrong. We're going to help you meet your goals and fix your butts. Welcome to the Butt Fixer Podcast. It's a lot of fun.
All right, Shane, you drive the bus here. Start.
Well, today we got a very special guest, somebody with a big heart and big dreams and a big story. We've got Molly Goldston with Saving Grace Rescue from was it Wake Forest, North Carolina, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, Molly, this is I've had the pleasure of working with you over the years on different dogs that, we might have a mutual client or just, working with the rescue in general. I love your story. I love, what you've done. And I really want people to kind of hear your story from like what got you into this. Let's just not start today. Let's start way back. Like how did we get here? And then let's talk about the size of the rescue these days. Because we're talking thousands of adoptions a year, right? At this point.
Yes, we do about 3,000 a year now. We did 4,000 during the COVID years because everybody wanted a dog, and we were one of the places that stayed open. A lot of other shelters closed, but we had a lot of people wanting to come, and so we just said we got to figure this out and get creative.
Right.
So we did a lot of adoptions in 20 and 21, 22.
Yeah. Tell us, how'd you get into this? I mean, what got you started in wanting to be in rescue? I mean, there's a lot of people that do it, but it's a special kind of person. I mean, this isn't something you can make. It's not a living. It's a passion. Yeah. It's everything. Like, how'd you get here?
It is hard for sure. Not an easy path. So I grew up with animals. We always had dogs and cats, and so I liked animals a lot. And then,
where'd you grow up?
Right here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Okay. So just down the street from the farm that Saving Grace is on. My dad grew up on the farm that is Saving Grace. So so it's been a family farm for about 100 years since the 1920s. Right. So he lived there. He had Goldston's. It was a building supply and kind of a center of the community for a lot of people that work there. And then once that phased out, then I moved to the farm, and I moved to the farm before that phased out, but my great-grandparents lived there. We wanted to keep it in the family when they passed on. So I moved there, not knowing that it would ever become Saving Grace. I was living there. And
what did you guys farm there?
There was livestock, and they also had crops, but the main thing was the building supply, but they also did farming also.
It's a big piece of property, man. How many acres is that place?
It was 100 acres. And then I am on 8 of it. And then the rest of my family, it got divided to the rest of the family.
Gotcha.
When they died. So I got the house and the 8 acres.
Got it.
So I started fostering actually in college. I was fostering for some of the local rescues. I did the bottle-fed kittens and the bottle-fed puppies, and I really loved that. And then after college, we had sold the family business, and it was okay. Of all the places you want to go now, where do you want to go? And I wanted to go to the shelter of all places. I said, I'm going to go work at the animal shelter, having no idea what that all entailed. So I saw just how many animals there were that were coming in, and in the early 2000s, so that would have been like 2000, it was before social media really came along. It was at the time where a lot of that technology was coming, and I think just people had no idea. In Wake County, we were filling dumpsters every week with these really nice adoptable dogs, and we had
terrible.
It was terrible, and for some of the communities, the strays aren't really an issue like they are in some of our more underserved areas. So if you weren't working and living in that, you really didn't know. A lot of people just didn't know how much that was happening right here in our backyard. So we also had just so many coming in at that time. And since we were a county, we were working with the county, then we have to take in the dogs, the homeless animals, the dogs that have nowhere to go. So you only have 72 hours or 5 days, depending on certain situations. So, the next crew was coming in. So we had to constantly move. And,
Ugh, it's got to be rough.
It was rough. And I saw a lot of people coming in. It was so crowded, with people surrendering animals or either, picking up animals that had been picked up by animal control. And we didn't really have time to get to know the animals. And at that point, like, dog behavior was just kind of becoming, dog behavior and training was just becoming more popular and more of a thing. Like,
right.
Before it was like, well, is the dog trying to eat us? It's not probably a great adoption candidate. Is it super scared? We're not really sure. We just kind of made our best assessment, which we didn't really have time to do. And so
yeah,
I
What
saw
year?
the dog,
What year is this that you were at the shelter?
This is like 2000.
Okay.
2000, 2001 was when I really got started there.
Okay.
And so, I saw a lot of people also coming in to adopt, but we couldn't really give them a lot of information and we didn't have people to help them very much. So I saw them leave and go to a breeder and buy a dog because it was a lot easier to work with them. Or they either adopted a dog we knew nothing about and it came back because it wasn't a really great match for them.
Yeah.
While, we had euthanized other dogs that probably would have been a great match for them. So I wanted to learn more about how do I assess these dogs and also set up something where people would have more of an inviting space to come and visit with the dogs. I saw a lot of people that would say, well, I don't really want to go back and look at the dogs because I feel too bad for who I'm not going to choose, which I think is still a really common thing.
Yeah.
People don't like to go to the shelter because they're going to see, all these sad faces and they're going to not necessarily choose a dog that's the best match for them as to who they feel sorry is for.
Right.
Which is normal if you're a dog lover. You feel sorry for them all. You want them all to have a home, but we want to choose those for who's going to be the best match for them for the next, hopefully 10 or 15 years.
Yeah. Now, when you were in college, I want to, before we get too far away from that, you mentioned taking on all the bottle fed puppies and kittens. And so how in the hell did you juggle a college lifestyle, which I don't, whether it involved a college extracurricular activities or not, but just the rigor just of that and not sleeping at night. I mean, you gotta be up every few hours feeding kittens and puppies and complete school and have a life. I mean, how did you manage that balance?
I didn't live on campus. I had just moved to the family farm. So I already had my little setup going there. And I don't know. I enjoyed the animals and working more than I did the college lifestyle. So it was never appealing to me to live there or do the college life. So
that works.
I don't know what all that tells you, but yeah. So I enjoyed working in the animals.
Did you go into your family? Did you go into your family business from? Did you go to your family business from college? Is that?
It was sold right as I was graduating college. So I had thought, I would probably be there. And then when it was sold, it it opened up any choices for me to be able to go wherever I wanted to go for a career. And that's when I said, well, I think I'll go to the shelter and work there, not knowing that I would still be sheltering 25 years later.
Wow.
That's wild, man. And so what's it like? I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I mean, it is something that happens. And I think people need to have a little bit of insight into what it's like when you are having to fill up those dumpsters. I mean, when you're having to put down perfectly good dogs because of space and time constraints and all of those things. I mean, that's got to take a mental toll on everybody involved. I would imagine
it does for sure. And sheltering isn't something that you see a lot of people stick with long term because you never have all the resources that you're going to need for all of them, whether it's people or medical care or space. Like we're never going to have that. And I still see that all the time now, is people don't tend to stay in it very long. But, you know,
what's the average career of a shelter
I don't
worker, you
know.
think?
I mean, the turnover, and that was one really good thing that helped me was when I was new to the shelter, we had so many people turn over and leave. I would do that job for a little while. So,
Oh,
so
wow.
I got a lot of experience seeing the different jobs that it entailed. It was good and bad. Bad because, you know, we didn't really have a great consistent group of people, but good because it gave me a lot of different perspective of all the different jobs. So, you know, there are some people that stay in it for life, but I think a lot of people think, well, I'm going to go there. I want to be with animals. And they go and they're there 6 months or a year, and they learn that, you know, they kind of go in and they're like, I'm going to make such a difference. And they do. Everybody that works in sheltering makes a huge difference. But sometimes it's hard to see when there's still so many left at the end of the day that you can't help.
Yeah.
You know, and people can be hard. The public is really hard.
Oh, I know. I love it when they complain, man. I just want to say, why don't you go volunteer for a day, a week, a month?
They want you.
Yeah, see what it's like.
Yeah, so they want you to take all the animals that are homeless and out on the street and don't have a place or don't have a good home. They also don't want anyone to be euthanized. And that can be brutal when they start to, you know, post all of this on social media and are really a bully to the shelter. And I still do see that a lot.
Yeah, I've seen it myself. We worked real closely with Wake County Animal Center for the last, I don't know, 10 years maybe, or something, maybe not that long, maybe 8 years or so. But I mean, we've trained their staff, but then that's almost for naught because of the turnover.
Yeah.
You know? We go in there and teach kennel attendants how to, you know, get a dog out of a kennel without it being cuckoo birds, you know, keeping a calm kennel, quiet kennels, things like that. But 2 weeks later, the same people that we went in there and taught how to do that are gone, and there's somebody else there.
Yeah,
and it's all right back to the same. It's such a big vicious cycle that there's no real.
You know, I don't think anything really in the animal world, unless you're in major retail, it really doesn't pay well. So you do it, you're working a really hard job. It's also an emotional job and not for a lot of money, you know? So reward really comes with making the
turnover's tough in this business anyway. I mean, we even when you're in business for profit, if you're a daycare, if you're a boarding facility, whatever. I mean, people think, I love animals, I love dogs. What do I want to do? I want to work with dogs. I want to work with animals. And then they realize, oh yeah, the work part, it is a job.
It is a job.
And it can be dirty. It can be smelly. It can be a lot of things. So a lot of people, you know, they go in and, I mean, Shane, you know, even the veterinarians, right? I mean, the turnover to vet office is huge. The turnover at a daycare is huge. So I can't imagine at a rescue. Well, I can't imagine. I mean, I've been in the business for over 30 years, so I can't imagine. I've worked with many rescues, and I understand that is a huge consistency. Having consistent people, usually, what I see is people have a core of like hardcore people that are there all the time, and then there's people coming in and out all, you know, continuously, right?
And you can't put them on the shelf and close and go to Christmas or vacation.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
True.
It's 365 days a year.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
And you know, like you were saying, Wake County, Shane, they have come so far, you know, so I don't ever want to say, well, I worked there and I worked in Wake County. At that time, the SPCA, animal control, the shelter, everything was the same. And it was open intake, you know, like we were taking so many animals, and, you know, at that time our space was a lot more limited. Our resources were a lot more limited than they are now. And they have done a really beautiful job. So the adoption experience, I think, from an animal coming through is a lot different than it is now. So I always want to say, like, I'm not saying that they aren't doing a good job, because they did a great job. And I think that the very best job was done even when I was there 25 years ago with what we had. It was just so many
I think it's really important that people see that they hear and see that
Yeah,
too.
I
That
do
there has
too.
been progress.
I do too. It's come a long ways. Animal sheltering has come so far. There are a lot of counties that are still like it was 25 years ago here. And now those are the counties that I work mostly with Saving Graces, because I really have a heart for those counties. And I also see so many dogs coming in that they're not in areas where there's a lot of people like there are in Wake County. We have a lot of people moving in. We have a lot of resources, a lot of really responsible pet owners in the area, even though there's still such a huge need for adoption and there's still more animals than could ever be placed. I work mostly with the rural counties where they by far are leading the state in the amount of animals coming in. So North Carolina is number 2 right now in euthanasia numbers for the entire country. So, so it's
just numbers, not percentage.
Right.
Numbers. Raw numbers. Wow.
So I think we're right behind California and Texas. We go back and forth with Florida. So some pretty big states there. And that's how many animals we have coming in our counties. And when you get to our rural counties, there really isn't a lot of options for low-cost spay-neuter, and we've lost those. Over COVID, we've lost more of those. So there's not as much resources. There's not as many people there. A lot more people have outside pets where if they have a couple of litters, it's not like they're in your living room having litters. So it's a little, it's, I want to say more common to see that.
Yeah, I think with the low cost spay and neuter programs out there, I think at least here locally, I've always, and I don't know if other ones do this, but I think it's Zebulon Animal Hospital that I think they do it by the pound. Okay. So instead of by the dog, it's by the pound as far as
the cost.
Because a larger dog is going to take a little bit longer to get through everything for that spay. Mainly for spays, not for neuters.
Right.
But I've had clients that have gone there, and it was next to nothing. Really affordable.
Right.
And it's just so crazy that you can get it for that. But if you go to your regular vet, you pay 10 times that.
10 times that. Yes.
And it's well, it's always with clients, it's always been it comes up often. Do I take advantage of getting it done cheaper? Or do I just go to my vet? Should that be reserved for people without the means to get their dog fixed?
Yeah.
Right.
So that comes up from time to time. It's pretty weird to navigate that. I just kind of give it, hey, it's your choice. You go wherever you want.
And even though it is low cost, I was going to say, even though it is low cost for some people who live in poverty, which is a large part of our state, more than we really realize. I think, especially once you get out of Wake County and some of our more populated areas, you realize how much of that is very common here. And even though it might just be $150, $200, which is really reasonable, it's beyond reasonable for the surgery and everything they get for the pain control after. And so that is really reasonable. But for a family who has kids and are living at the poverty level, that's still a lot. And I see a lot of them that don't have reliable transportation, or if they have reliable transportation, it might be just one vehicle and that person is going to work Monday through Friday. So getting that animal there presents a much bigger challenge than to a lot of the families we see that are, taking advantage of the dog training because the pet is in their home, it is their family, and they have a lot more options than some of our more rural communities.
How long were you working in the shelter?
I worked there for 2 years, and then I went and did some internships in dog training. I was doing some group classes and also some behavior work, and did some internships with other shelters, not in North Carolina, mostly in the Northeast, where they did have some behavior training based on shelter animals and how to assess the animal for what their behavior is going to be outside of a shelter, because even the nicest, sweetest dog that comes into a shelter is terrified when they arrive. You know, if they have been living, a lot of what I see is a dog that was living, you know, under a car or in a rural community, or, you know, I see a lot like living in a trailer park or a rural area, you know, and they're comfortable and they're happy. So maybe it's not living inside as a family pet, but that's life to them. And coming into a shelter is really hard. You know, you have a different person grabbing you in and out of a kennel every day. You're eating something different. You have no idea who dog is next to you, in front of you, and it changes throughout the day. Even sometimes you have no idea. So sometimes those dogs that are cowering in the back, once you take them out and you just give them a chance to see what human affection is to them, you just take them, sit there and offer them a lap, they just melt in your lap. And those end up being just the nicest dogs sometimes. And then you see somebody who's just jumping at the kennel wanting to go out, and you're like, oh, I think he's friendlier. That's not always the case. You know, I think that dog might be a lot more difficult in a home. Not that he doesn't deserve a home too, but what is my adopter looking for to join their family? What type of training are they looking to do so that we can set them up both for a good experience? Because we want that adopter to have a good experience, because we want them to send their friends back to adopt more shelter dogs. So I feel like every shelter dog we send out has to be a representative for shelter dogs, because they're representing everybody coming behind them. So we really want to set them up for a good experience, and then also set that person up to be happy with their dog, so they send their friends back to get a dog.
Yeah.
So
let me down here on my feet.
When is this the first rescue you started, or was there another one? No,
this is the
priors.
This is the first one I started. I worked with someone after I left the shelter who had recently started a rescue, but I decided pretty soon I wanted to do my own thing, and I started out by doing the behavior work and going to some of the internships and learning how to do the behavior side, and then helping people who were looking to adopt a dog. I would go to a shelter and help them select a good one, but I might not find a good match for them, but I might find 4 or 5 other really nice dogs. And so I would bring those home, foster those, find homes for them. And then word just kind of grew. I started Saving Grace because I wanted to get everybody vetted, make sure that they were spayed and neutered and heartworms were treated if that was an issue before sending them home. So, and that was something that I had seen in the shelter before. Back in those days, if you were heartworm positive, you were an automatic euthanasia. And again, just because there were so many coming in, we had more than we could place anyway. So taking those on who were an extra at least $1,000 for us, and not even just the amount of money for heartworm treatment, but the amount of time it took to find someone who would take that on. The dog would sit a lot longer, and we just didn't have the space to keep it. So I wanted to really be able to say, this is a really great dog. I'm going to figure out how to make this dog available if it has something that's treatable. You know, if it doesn't have something that's affecting its quality of life, which heartworms don't. We treat about 500 a year at Saving Grace for heartworm disease. So when I go into a shelter, I'm really looking for a dog that's behavior is going to fit our program. And then we take care of the medical side of that.
Right. Yes, I mean, and you guys do a great job at it. I mean, because you got, 150 dogs at any given time off leash, running free on the property.
Yeah, we used to have,
it's a lot of fun when you go out there, man. They're everywhere living their best life.
It's a free for all. We usually have about 80 to 100 on site available for adoption, and then we typically have around 200 in foster. So we have a huge foster program. Yes, our foster team is absolutely incredible. Those are mama dogs with puppies. We get lots of puppies. I still turn away litters of puppies every day. It's really amazing. But for dogs to come into our shelter as puppies, they have to have, hey, come here. Come here.
That's normal.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My issue.
Look,
my
Frenchie.
Right.
Cute.
So she wants me to play ball. So for mamas and puppies coming in, they have to have a space where they can be until they're weaned so that we can put them up for adoption then. Or if they're puppies, we make sure they have at least 3 vaccines, because that way they are coming in, they're going to be mixed together. If anybody has, any diseases, we want to be able to see that in a foster, treat it before it comes back and would go home with someone. So we try to make sure we're giving them a healthy pet. And so the foster cares for that. Or we also get a lot of dogs that have some sort of an injury, whether it's, hit by a car, get a fair amount of gunshot, actually. Yeah, and
I guess when you get rural,
it's more of a livestock issue. So it's not that they are caught in people are like, was it a drive-by? No.
Nah.
No, it's more of a livestock issue where a lot of people have livestock in the more rural areas. So if a dog is even chasing livestock, they want it to leave. And so
my first dog when I was a kid was an old English sheepdog named Fred. And he used to go run the cows, and the farmer told him that if he gets out there again, he said, I'm going to shoot him.
Yeah.
And sure as shit, shot the shit out of him. He didn't die. I mean, shot him in the thigh, but I remember I'm like 5 years old sitting in the back of my mom's station wagon with my dog going to the vet hospital because he got shot, just like, it's so traumatic,
Yeah.
It's, but I get it. I mean, that dude's like, raising
should have kept your dog
his
on a leash.
lifestyle. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The hard way to learn, keep your dog on a leash, but
it
happens, and it's usually not minor. We get the leg in and it's pretty shattered. So so we do amputations regularly for that, and they do very well, but they stay in a foster until they're ready to come back to Saving Grace and be adopted. Because our goal is, even though Saving Grace is a great place if you have to be a shelter dog, it's not a home, and we really don't want you to be there any longer than you have to be to find your family. So keeping them in a home is always better. So we try to keep them in a foster, and then they come back when they're ready to go home.
Right.
So I haven't been out there. Obviously, Shane has told me a lot about you and your rescue there. So what, you have about 150 at a time?
Well, on site we have usually about 80 to 100.
Okay.
And then in foster, we have about 150 to 200 who will be coming available for adoption soon.
So you have a network of a couple of hundred fosters.
Yeah.
And on site they're loose. They're not kenneled all day.
There's different play groups. So our play groups are anywhere from a pair of 2 to 10 or 15. And so we can group a lot more younger dogs together.
Okay. So we did my company, we went out. Shane, I don't know if you came to Florida that time and did I'm sure, Molly, you've heard of a program called Dogs Playing for Life.
I would love
Amy Sadler's program. Yeah, why don't we set it up? I can help you with that, I think. Maybe.
I would love that. And there are multiple shelters around that would love to come to that too.
That would be great. And if you have the space to host it, that would be even better. I mean, they do those for free, of course. So I'm not quite sure how the expenses work to get their team on site, but they travel around the country doing that. So it sounds like you're doing a variation of that. I mean, we went as trainers. We went because we have client dogs that they're just not good with other dogs, and that we went to learn how to facilitate play groups for our clients and help the dogs get along better with other dogs and things like that. So it was quite interesting. But we did the whole shelter program with them over the course of a weekend at one of the shelters in the middle of nowhere, Florida. So yeah, if you haven't tried, I can make an introduction with you by email after we finish.
That would be great.
See if,
that would be great. Yeah. I know a lot of shelters awesome. in North Carolina, and a few of them I've worked with just to be able to get a few dogs out. It is intimidating at first because I think we have these kind of preconceived notions that we don't know them, and it could possibly go very badly. And it rarely does. It really rarely does. You usually get a lot more noise. Leaving them on leash, you start just to leave them on leash. And so that if things go south and they're not getting along, it's easy to separate them. So, but it really makes such a difference to keep dogs sane and not that frustration level, which we see them, really decline in shelters when they can't get out and just have the freedoms to make decisions. We don't really realize how many decisions dogs get to make in a day. And I see that piece with my dogs. Somebody must be here, but
I know a guy.
Yeah. How many decisions, a dog living on this, living rural or living not in a home gets to make. What am I going to eat today? Where am I going to walk? Who am I going to see? Where am I going to go? Where am I going to sleep? And then you take a dog and put them in a crate or a kennel and you give them the food and they get nothing. They get nothing to think about, nothing to learn, nowhere to exercise, and just feed on the stress that brings in a stressful environment. And they look less and less adoptable as they're in that situation because they start to bark, jump, or either they just start to cower and stop eating, and the stress is really, really difficult for them. So getting them out for play groups is really life-saving, very, very much so for a lot of these shelters, especially the dogs that are going to stay there longer. And at Saving Grace, it really gives people a chance to see dogs interacting with other dogs, gives them an idea of what they're going to be like. And, the dog's energy level is down. They're not jumping all over you because they're just so deprived of human affection and exercise that they show a lot better. So sometimes I'll see a dog in a kennel at a shelter and know that there's no way anybody would choose that dog because it's an adolescent with zero manners and it looks like an idiot in the kennel. But if you take it out, give it some exercise, and people come in and engage with that dog, it's a really nice dog that just needs to learn to sit and have some basic exercise. And it's a really nice dog. And so I saw that when I started Saving Grace. People like to come visit with the dogs, see them in their natural environment. No, they don't typically have formal manners. Some of them can sit. A lot of them can walk on a leash. But we know we have a dog that gets along well with others and what their engagement with people is.
Okay.
Yeah. And the bar's low, man. I mean, if when people are looking out, we've got a program, Foster Faster, rehab and rehome in 21 days. And, the where we teach fosters how to foster for adoption. Right. They shouldn't be in the bed because the adopter might not want them in the bed. They shouldn't be on the couch. It's like, remember why you became a foster, and when we're working through those things, it's like, damn it. I had a path I was going down there for a second. I completely lost it.
With the person.
Oh, the bar's low. Like if they walk past 3 or 4 crates of the dogs that are jumping up and down and barking their heads off, and there's one that's sitting, it's going home. Mm-hmm. It's not. We're not looking for do backflips. Right. It's just a dog that shows some kind of composure in a stressful situation like an adoption event will almost always get adopted, and it's so easy to make that happen. It's just we got to get to the people,
It's the human end of the leash, human end, man. Yeah.
And why we got a little thing here, I got to read we have a new sponsor. So I've got to read our little sponsor commercial, and then we'll keep going. So our new sponsor for the podcast is Kakalaki. And they are hailed as the local brand with a national following and now celebrating more than 2 decades in business. North Carolina-based Kakalaki brand is the iconic Southern lifestyle brand that specializes in Kakalaki branded sauces, snack nuts, beverages, food service, and menu items, apparel, outdoor sporting goods, sponsored events, and more. The company also makes and distributes Kakalaki Cheerwine sweet sauce, as well as the Carolina Tar Heels barbecue sauce, an officially licensed collegiate product. Kakalaki is a family-owned and operated company based in Pittsburgh, and if you go to Kakalaki and buy yourself some awesomeness, put in ButFixer15 at the checkout as your promo code, and you will save 15% off of your order. So kakalaki.com is how you would get there. And I got to say, I use it all the time. I'm actually one of their brand ambassadors. Like all their brand ambassadors are always all these like cooking teams and competition teams. And I'm just posted what I cook for me and Emily. And when I find stuff that I like, I share it on on my cooking page. And they got tagged enough that they said, all right, here's a bunch of stuff. Keep doing it. And so now each one of our podcast guests, until we run out of supply, is going to get a Kakalaki gift sent to you. So when we get off here, you got to send me your address so I can send you some things. Hey, when you had dinner here, that was some sauce. That was some Kakalaki I had on it. What did we have? Chicken or something? I can't remember. But yeah, sorry. You may continue now that we've paid the bills.
So Molly, where I mean, how are you? Where are you getting the dogs from? Do you go to the same places? Are you going to the rural shelters? Are you going? Are they being surrendered to you?
I go to all shelter dogs. We don't take surrenders, just because I'd rather work with dogs that have no one, and I can go in and really select who I'm looking for. Surrenders can be hard because it takes a lot of people don't really realize, I think, some of the behavior issues when they're surrendering. They might recognize it as, I don't feel safe with him as my kid or with my child, or he's not getting along with other dogs. So I like to go to the shelters and really choose the dogs that I'm looking for, that I know will be successful for our program, because I definitely don't want to take dogs that people are looking to surrender and then it not be a good candidate for us, and it just doesn't really help anyone. Right. So I go to about 10 different counties very regularly, and then several other counties here and there, not as regularly, but they call me when they need me. So probably about 15 is the majority of where our animals come from. Depending on the needs, there are more than that, but those are really my regular shelters. And it just depends on how many get adopted from us, is how often I can go and how many I can bring in. We bring in dogs every week for sure. Some days every week, or every day of the week, and then sometimes it might just be one day that week. But it really depends on how many adoptions there are, and a lot of people learn at Saving Grace they can come choose a dog that's a good match for them. And not only are they saving that dog and giving that dog a home, but they're also saving another dog in a shelter that's waiting for a space before its time is up. So they get a dog that's a good match for them, and they also are saving more shelter dogs. So that's really appealing to a lot of people, that they are, saving these shelter dogs, but still getting a dog that's fully vetted. And we also know a little bit more about their behavior.
Okay. And so how many in North Carolina? All your dogs are just coming from the shelters in North Carolina.
There's a couple in South Carolina that are right on the border. We do a lot in that Scotland, Robinson, Dillon area. That area is probably the most underserved, definitely one of the most underserved on the Southeast, I would say. And that's like 95 to the eastern counties.
It's like a endless. It's endless, isn't it?
Endless.
I mean, how many animals are there? So when how many? What is the size of your rescue in comparison to some of the others that are doing the same thing in North Carolina? If we just and I'm getting at this because I work with a rescue in Washington D.C., but they get a huge number of their dogs from North Carolina. They come out to, it's called Rural Dog Rescue, and they come into North Carolina,
because I can send them some more.
Yeah. I'll add that to my. I'll add that also. We take when I train new trainers, we take some of their incorrigibles and house them with the trainers that we're training. And then I was telling Shane, probably we've only given one or two of them back over the years. Most of the time, the trainer themselves take them home, or they have somebody where they live. So there's been dogs that started in rural North Carolina, ended up in Washington D.C., and now they live in Boston, or they live in California. One of them sadly just passed, but it was after he'd been living with the trainer for 10 years, and he ended up in San Francisco, California.
I would definitely love to do more with the Northeast. They've had spay neuter laws up there since the 70s, and they license dogs, so it's easier for them to keep up with who's not spayed and neutered. It's also harder for them to live outside year round where it, freezes and the weather isn't. Here in North Carolina, you can live outside year round and be fine, but not really in
I know it's very frustrating with the dogs. Like I've had to. It hasn't happened often. I've had to call animal control on some clients before, and it's been a long time, but it has happened. But they come out there and look, and they go, "Well, yeah, it's chained to a tree, but he's got a doghouse
and water.
He's got fresh water. Mm-hmm. Can't do anything about it."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What are you doing?"
And there's a lot of people that have grown up here, and that has been their only. That is all they have ever seen of how we have pets, and so that definitely takes a couple of generations to say that is not how your dog wants to live. It wants to be with you.
Yeah.
And
I couldn't imagine putting my dog on a chain on a tree and
and
I couldn't imagine doing it anyway. I mean, like, I gotta be. This is my family. It's like,
Yes.
It's But you're right. That is probably generational, and probably takes several or a couple to get forward thinking going.
And I think there's a big bridge that has recently been kind of bridged in rescue and with homes. When I first was starting in shelter and everybody was doing a home visit, and it was so hard to get a dog. It was just really not a really great adoption experience for some of the
That is very true.
It was harder for them to adopt than it was to just, again, call a breeder, and they'll meet you in a parking lot in 30 minutes. And, so a lot of people said, well, it has a fenced yard. They can pay for all the medical care it's ever going to need. And when I first started in sheltering, I learned really quickly that the amount of money you have does not at all mean what type of life you give that dog. There are people that we see a lot. I still see a lot that are on, Meals on Wheels or get food delivered to their house. And those dogs have only eaten human food when they come to us because they could never buy dog food. But that dog ate first. And I would be that dog any day over a dog that lived with somebody in a McMansion and lived in a crate 20 hours a day and ate the best dog.
Oh yeah, of course.
So I think that rescue and sheltering has come around to that a little bit, and more focus has been put on helping people who really love their animals be able to keep them. And years ago, it was more like, well, you can't afford the dog, you can surrender it here. And so that has definitely been really rewarding to see over the years too, how our culture has shifted a little bit to really helping the people keep their animals, as much as just taking the animals that people can't afford, helping them get the resources to keep it.
Yeah. Let me ask another question, just kind of rolling through the time here. It goes fast. What's a day in the life like for you? I mean, you have to, how many you have paid staff and you have volunteers, I'm sure.
I do. So we only have 7 paid staff. So
only 7. Yeah.
7, okay. And we have about 400 active volunteers.
Wow.
So,
and
how do you generate that?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh, sorry, John.
And manage it. I mean, your skill set must be. What was your major in college?
It was business management, but definitely a lot more learned after on the job than actually before. So I have a lot of really great people at Saving Grace, and I have a lot of really good mentors and a lot of people who are, maybe a professional in HR or something. And I call them and I say, hey, help me with this, so that developing those relationships over the years has absolutely made it possible for me to have Saving Grace, and having so many people in the community that want to join together and make this happen for so many dogs. It takes everybody. It takes everyone. In 2020, we lost all of our veterinary services, and that was at the same time we were bringing in so many dogs, and we closed for a week, and all those dogs that would have come to Saving Grace in that week, that was when we thought, oh, well, the country's going to close for a couple of weeks, not 2 years. And so we were like, we closed for a week, and all those dogs were euthanized that didn't come to Saving Grace. So we said, we have to figure this out because this is just not okay. And so we built a spay neuter clinic. It's a very small clinic. It's a mobile clinic that we have on site. We brought that in and just kind of improvised and winged it as we went. And I think having a lot of people that are flexible and come together to tackle a project or say, what do we do to figure this out? And also will help me be a mentor or help in their capacity, whatever their experiences are. Because it takes everybody in a business world, like it would be a big, in a big business, it takes all of that to run a successful rescue. I had to get help with how do you set up a daily surgery schedule and employ these people to work, our surgeon and our techs and all of that side. And we also have a small retail store. So I saw so many people adopting and then going to the bigger chain stores and spending $500,000 to get all their crate and all their supplies. And it's like, we should figure this out so that we can send those proceeds back to Saving Grace. So we have a great little store too. We started that in 2019. So all of that ties in together to keep us sustainable. Definitely in 2020, we learned we want to be more sustainable so that if we lose a major spay neuter partner, then we can still keep going. And those dogs aren't depending on relationships or services that we can't provide based on our structure. So yeah,
Are you fundraising, or is everything kind of generated from your adoption fees? And what is that?
It's all donation. So there is an adoption fee, but that's just a portion of the medical care that the dogs have cost to be able to go through the program for their spay neuter, their housing, and their vetting. So we have to fundraise everything else on top of that.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So that's a big count.
And how,
and they got a lot of unique programs. I mean, you guys have folks come out and take the dogs on hikes and
we do
all kinds of super creative things to one. I mean, it gets the dogs out.
It does.
And then it shows, I'm sure that turns into some adoptions.
We try to really get them out in our community. So people don't necessarily just have to come on site to volunteer. We try to have all different avenues so that the dogs can get out, and so that shelter dogs also cross other people's paths that might not otherwise have done that. So our sleepover program is amazing. And that's where you pick up your shelter dog on Friday night and you bring them back Sunday night or either Monday morning. So you don't get to choose which shelter dog you get, but you say, I have a cat or I have kids or I have a small dog, and we match you with the dog you're looking for. Some people are super active and want to hike all weekend. Some people, I think, probably watch Netflix all weekend. So try to match them with a dog. It's going to be similar energy. And we ask them to do photos of them out in the community or either on the couch in a home. And that really helps show those dogs how they're going to be as a family member, not just, in a crate. So we have.
I know me and John had an idea one time about doing something like that with puppies for dudes to pick up chicks at the park.
Oh, it would be great. So we have a couple of volunteers.
I forgot about that. That was some drunken
well, it works.
Brainstorm session. Yeah.
It totally works. We have some of our volunteers have kids at UNC Carolina at Chapel Hill, and a few times we've taken puppies over and just set an X pen up. And it is a really interesting experiment because a couple of them see it and they start Snapchatting. Oh, we have 150 students within maybe 5 minutes that just flock out to hold.
Wow.
So people love puppies.
That's awesome.
People love puppies.
Yeah.
There might be we might need to revisit that, Shane. We
I
could
know,
we
right?
could we
Right?
could
We can pair up with
put
Molly.
Tinder
There
out
we
of
go.
business, man. A whole new twist
there's
on
some.
it.
I think there might be something there. I think there's going to be an app in our future.
Oh my God! Here we
a
go.
puppy dating app.
Here
That'd
we
be
go.
awesome.
Idea number 1,000, whatever that won't work.
So with I want to, because what do you feel like attributes to the number of fosters that you're able to bring in that want to work with? I mean, it's like if you go on, I mean, just because of what I do, I mean, my news feed is full of rescue shelters, and every freaking body on the planet is begging, dying, begging, pleading for fosters, for help, for volunteers. What do you feel like that you've done differently that has attracted so many people to want to come in and follow your program, your passion?
Well, we have a really great foster program for sure, and that's all volunteer based, and we have some really great leaders on that. And what we found is that having more of a certain time that people can foster for some of the rescues that don't have a facility for them to come back to, or maybe chose a dog that is a harder to adopt dog that ends up taking a lot longer, then I think fosters get frustrated because they signed up to foster. They thought it was going to be a few weeks. And now 6 months later, they still have this dog that might not be super easy to integrate into their home, but it's, they're managing it because they want to give that dog, follow through with that job of fostering, of signing up, that commitment. But maybe it wasn't what they expected, and they don't foster again. So we try to really have a set time for people. So if you get a dog who has an amputation, we know that's going to be about 10 days. And, if it's puppies, we know when they're going to be big enough to have their vaccines done and come back for adoption. So I think we try really hard on the adoption side to get good photos, get good bios, get them listed up and promoted to the community so that people see that and they have that support of their dog getting adopted, and also a place for it to come back and be adopted when it's ready. So I think some of the ones that are just rescue based, just foster based, I see people get a little more frustrated because they get a dog that takes so long, and maybe they also don't have the support for training or medical care. And we have a really great program that can give people a mentor for their dog if they, if they're taking on a litter of puppies and they've never done this. A lot of people really overthink it. I see a lot more of that with the fosters, like especially our litters of puppies. I'm working, I can't be home all day, and like, you don't have to be. Fostering, we want it to be just a bridge from having no one and no opportunity to getting it into that forever home. So, a lot of people, I think, overthink it and say, well, I have a litter of puppies, I have to be here for the entire 4 weeks or 2 weeks that they're going to take. You really don't. And so I think having somebody to say, I'm here for your questions and let's make it doable and just relax. It's okay. They're going to be well taken care of. They have all their medical care, and maybe they're not totally crate trained, walking on a leash and have commands by the time they're 10 or 12 weeks old. But that's okay. Like, just remember, this is what you're doing. And a lot of people really appreciate that support.
Right. How do you have a way to weed out the, I don't know, for lack of a better term, sort of virtue signaler type person that goes, oh, look at me, I'm a foster. Oh, look at me, I did this. Oh, look at me, I did that. Because I can imagine those people are the ones that commit and then go, oh, I'm inconvenienced.
Yes.
This is just too much, and you get the call a day later, 2 days later that the dog's got to go because they did their foster, they did their thing, Do you run into many of those types of people?
Yes. And I think having the realistic expectations to start with, if you get 10 people, we know we're going to get 2 reliable fosters.
Oh, wow. It's that way. I was thinking maybe the other way around. So out of 10, you're going to get 2
that are going to be long-term. Yes. Because some people learn, puppies chew a lot of stuff. They have a lot of diarrhea. They don't sleep through the night. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of
Yeah, it is.
so some people, they just don't really have the realistic expectation of what that's going to entail. So we, from our side, say, we've got to be, same with the volunteers, you've got to be just so proactive and constantly recruiting and building that, because so many people want to come volunteer to, pet puppies and kittens at the shelter. It's not petting puppies and kittens. It's a lot of cleaning.
Yeah.
It's a lot of management. You have a lot that are sick and need medication. You have to work with the public to get them adopted, which is sometimes challenging in itself. So, we just kind of know, like, these are the people that are coming. We want to educate them about sheltering. So even if they come to orientation and never come back, they still learn about Saving Grace. They learn about sheltering in North Carolina. So we just look at it that way. They can come on, work with us, and the people who want to stay do. And we have a lot of really great people who do that. And, even if they only foster once, well, that's one dog that is now going to have a life and an adoption experience and a great family because they did it once. So that's not what we would like. We'd like them to stay with us forever. If they try it and they find that it's a lot more work, or it's, heartbreak to give them back, then, they did it once. They tried it, and we're grateful that they took the time and did that. So, because there's a lot of people that never even try it. So we have to say, we're grateful they came along, did it, tried it. It's really rare we get somebody who just takes them for one night and never comes back. I mean, brings it back and says, I don't want this dog. We rarely deal with that. So we try to give them the expectation up front enough to know, like, it's going to take some transition.
Gotcha.
I mean, I'm flabbergasted by just the scale of the operation and what it must take to run it on a day-to-day basis with coordinating 400 plus volunteers, 7 full-time employees, the dogs coming in. There she goes.
I just got to get my charger.
She's managing.
I got to get my charger.
Yeah.
She's managing somebody right now.
Myself.
Yeah. So that is I mean, to me, that just seems like you must have some long days. When's the last time you went on vacation?
I don't know that I've ever actually been on vacation and turned the phone off. I'm always reachable, but it is much easier now. For the first, 15 years, it was really hard to go on vacation.
15 years. Yeah.
Probably.
Wow. That's dedication.
I mean, now I feel like I could leave and they might try to reach me. And if they didn't, I feel like they're very capable of making a good decision. So it is definitely easier now. I have a lot of good people
you can delegate. You can delegate now.
Yes. Yeah. They might not want to make the decision themselves, but they're capable of doing it.
I got it. Yeah.
Well, what would you say is some of your, it is the Butt Fixer podcast. So we always got to ask everybody, what was your biggest butt? You wanted to do something, but you tried to do something, but you're going to do something, but like what types of butts have you had to overcome? And do you currently have any in front of you that you're actually trying to cover or to conquer now?
Well, I would say our biggest challenge has been the facilities, which was an old farm and it kind of grew into what it is now. So we've had some challenges as far as trying to modernize our facilities, and being outside in the farm is great on a beautiful day if you're there to visit with the dogs, but we don't have a lot of indoor space. So we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we go from here to make it more inviting on the cold days or the rainy days or the super hot days for some of our people.
I think that right there is just an amazing thing that's even on your radar. Like, and I know John hasn't been there, and for folks that are listening that haven't been there, I have been there, and it is freaking doggy paradise, man. I mean, it is there. I mean, it's stunning. I've never seen anything like. I've been in this business for 15 years, and I've been doing free training for rescues and shelters and fosters for the entire time. I've never, ever come across a facility as built, even though you are feeling those changes and those struggles and those like need to grow and need to do. But for the outsider that would to come there, in anybody's experience that's looked into any type of fostering, any type of rescuing, it's incredible. I mean, I can't imagine. I'm blown away that you feel like you need to advance on what you've already done, because it's already the most amazing shit out there.
Well, you haven't been on a rainy day or a day.
Yeah, you got a point.
In the middle of the winter time, and so.
Oh God.
That can be harder, especially for people with kids or older people, to visit with the dogs outside. We definitely have a place that has some indoor space too. We definitely like being outside a lot. It's great for the dogs. It's easier to interact with a lot of different dogs, and it is a space that people like to come and visit. Which, like I said earlier in the podcast, a lot of people don't like to go to a shelter because they feel like it's kennel after kennel after kennel, and the dogs aren't happy. I think sometimes those dogs are happy. I mean, sometimes the shelters had them in play groups and they are doing fine there, but to somebody who isn't working there, they think, oh, it has to live in a kennel and I can't really, get a good idea about it. So we definitely have a good space for people to see the dogs and interact with them
and if nothing else, the dogs are having a freaking blast.
They are typically having a blast.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's 8 acres of just run as fast as you can, as hard as you can, chase me, I'll chase you. I mean, it's the happiest. I've never seen another rescue scenario where the dogs are that just like, hey man, we just love everything. I mean, they're happy dogs, man, and they're gonna make great pets.
Yeah,
and
and a lot of our dogs come from places where they haven't necessarily had a lot. So I always like seeing that in shelter dogs is, they just have, I think they're happier with what they get. And, more so than some dogs who are like, I eat at 4:00. It's not 4:00. I'm sitting here. I'm hungry. Our dogs, they don't care when they eat. They don't care what they eat. They're there. They're having a great time. They're like, whatever. This is awesome.
Speaking of eating, just guesstimation, or if you know the actual number, how many pounds of dog food do you guys go through a week?
Oh my gosh. I would say we go through at least 100 pounds a day.
Wow.
A day. Wow.
Oh yeah.
That's a lot of dog food.
Yeah.
And how do you source it? Do you work with certain food companies that have shelter programs? Is it all volunteer? Is that also something that you ask for your volunteers to donate?
It's
or
both.
Like, how do you acquire that much food?
It's both. So we get some pallets donated. We have a local company here in Henderson, not far from us, about 45 minutes away, maybe an hour away, that has they make dog food and they donate pallets at a time. Sometimes they have 2 pallets, sometimes they have 6 pallets, and sometimes they don't have anything. And when they don't have anything, then we do put a call out to our volunteers, put it on our social media. We put an Amazon link or either a link to our store. We can buy it wholesale.
Okay,
so
good.
We try to send people our way to shop local and support the store instead of the big chains. But that's okay. If it's easier to support the big chains, a lot of them already have an account there. And so we have a wish list and they can just send it to us. And we just put out, hey, we're really low on food, and lots of people send us a bag, and that's what.
Is that just the dogs on site, or is that through all your fosters as well?
It's both. Some fosters, like if they just have one other foster dog and they already have another dog, it's easier for them to feed their dog or the foster dog, whatever they're feeding their personal dog. So they want to do that. I would say it's we probably provide most of the food, because we also get a lot of people that take a big litter and they're going to use 50 pounds a week. Some people are like, I can do the fostering, but I can't afford, all the medical care and the food and that sort of stuff. So we supply that. So we do supply a lot that goes to foster.
Cool.
Something.
Well, just real quick, while anybody's watching, whoever, if you see a guy here in my window, there's a dude. There got folks out here working on the house today.
I can't see it.
I just looked in. I was like, "What the hell is that in the corner?" And I looked around. There's a dude on a ladder right here. Well, Molly, give us a closing remark. Let's tell people how they can find you, How can they volunteer if they want to volunteer?
Donate.
And what can we do to, like, let's see if we can't make a move in the needle for you and see if we can put the call out.
That would be great, and we do always rescue dogs. Ever since I started, I said, with the resources that I have, I'm going to maximize how many dogs we can save. So the more donations and support we get, the more lives we save every day and every year. So our website is savinggracenc.org. That's got all the information there about our hiking program, sleepover, foster, all the volunteer opportunities. And I always tell people too, if you want to volunteer, but you're not on site or you can't come do the heavy lifting, the dog play groups, that sort of thing, it takes as much coordinating behind the scenes, coordinating the fosters of what fosters do we have open, being a mentor to them to schedule all the vet visits. So somebody who just can even work at the computer and help with that sort of coordinating is just as important as the people who are coming on site and scooping the poop and actually doing all the physical labor. That's a lot of times things people don't think about, but it takes events, it takes fundraising, it takes all of those skills. So people who are, in a professional job, we can probably use their skills, whatever type that is. So,
and can that be done? Can some of that work be done for you remotely?
Yes.
I mean, we have people all over, so they can contact you, volunteer to do remote work.
They can do all of that remote. Yes, we have our store website is savinggracesupplyco.com, and you can order all our Saving Grace swag there. We have great social media at Saving Grace NC on Facebook, Instagram, and on TikTok. And then my personal link is Molly Goldston for social media.
All right. And I'll put all that in the description as well for you.
Okay. Yeah. We'll get that all in there. And so when we kill it here, leave your computer open until you get the message that says it was fully downloaded, or else we'll lose the whole thing. That's our closing statement on every podcast. Don't close your computer.
That's our tagline. Yeah. So
don't close it.
So I'm gonna hit stop here, and then we'll still be on together. So thank you again for coming on, and good luck. And I hope we can help.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity.
Yep, thank you. Okay.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Butt Fixer Podcast. Stay tuned for more guests, more stories, and more butt fixes. Make sure you click like, subscribe, and follow at all of the places where you stream podcasts.